Howdy guys, Rex here. We are live. Nice Sunday. I did drink a little bit of coffee. Beautiful day. Just thought we could do a live stream, answer some questions, talk about long range shooting, shooting equipment, peripheral equipment, any questions you guys might have. Good to see you all. There's a lot of events coming up as we get rolling here. We're going to Idaho very soon. That's going to be in, she wrote it down for me this time. We're going to be in Boise, Idaho, July 27th and 28th at the Hyatt Place in Boise, okay? And that's for the RX seminar. And if you use the code there, if you go to rexdefense.com, you'll find where those tickets are available. If you use the code, you will definitely get a deal on the room. I believe it's like $60 off the room if you want to stay at the same place where we're going to be. Hey Arnold, how you doing, man? This is going to be a live stream, guys. So I will be, if you're watching this after it's not live, I'll be reading the little comments that pop up on the camera here and answering questions and visiting. So, what do I think of a C? Third letter, very good one. Yep, Charlie. What are the classes that have replaced the DMR or the level 0 DMR class? What are the classes? Oh, what are the classes that can replace it? Basically, the DMR level 0 is to bring you to the competency with basic carbine marksmanship in a military style of marksmanship, which is a bit different than precision rifle shooting. So there's going to be a lot of guys with a lot of experience, maybe on precision rifles, bolt action, stuff like that, or maybe even with aftermarket competition, equipped carbines. Carbines that are set up for military applications or tactical applications are going to be configured quite a bit different than your high-speed competition 3-gun type rifles and things like that. Typically, you're going to have a lot more of a trigger pull. Typically, you're going to have a lot more of the GI configuration weapons, and there's a different style of marksmanship you're going to have to employ if you're utilizing a rifle set up for battle than if you're using a rifle set up for target shooting. Okay, DMR class, we're going to go over designated marksmanship. Okay, and there's a whole different way of training for that. Now, it's if you're shooting for groups on paper, there's ways that you would manipulate those rifles differently to get the best group performance. However, under pressure, under fatigue, under stress, under like intense conflict, you're going to be handling that weapon totally different. Your body's going to change under adrenaline pressure. And so that's why the military has different ways of training their guys than you might see in the F-class world, the precision rifle shooting world, or in the even 3-gun competition world. There's different pressures, different selective priorities that arise when you're in that kind of a position. And so when we're doing the DMR level 0 class, we're just bringing folks up to speed on that. Now, if you are already very, very well versed in that already, if let's say if you're actively, U.S. military, like an infantry type MOS or something like that, or if you are a weapons instructor, like actively in the military, that's something we might be able to work around. We do have some other courses. We got some friends, AFT in Las Vegas, and another one of my friends in Texas, and I'll put those links on the bottom of the video here, so you guys can see where they can bring you up to that basic level of competency. But in my experience, when you're talking about folks that really, really, really want to master something, they are not shy to actually go through the entire process, because it's like, the more I learn in life, the more I realize that if I'm having a conversation, what is antecedent to the point I think I want to get to, right? The thing that's prior to that is actually like very important to understanding the topic fully. And so I like to get to the very beginning, like if I'm watching a movie, right? There's a lot that unfolds in the very beginning part of the movie that it brings context to the rest of the conversation. And if you show up in midpoint in the conversation, a guy's going to not have that full idea of what's going on in terms of what the point is or why these different deals are being executed the way they are. And so that's why we decided to go and make the DMR level 0 course. It's not that it's for dummies by a long shot. It's mastering combat marksmanship, okay? So it's like your Army or your Marine marksmanship style course, bringing you up to speed on how to run weapons in those configurations for that task, okay? And so that's kind of what the DMR level 0 is for. And even for a lot of guys who I would say would be pretty well versed in a lot of that stuff already, from prior experience. I think that that's something that here behind me. That's something that definitely I would not skip. Even if you do have prior experience, I know that there's a lot of my friends and cats that I hang out with had a lot of trigger time. Like unless you were in a combat MOS, or if you had a lot of carbine time and actually shot a lot, I think the DMR level 0 is definitely going to be kind of an introduction to a lot of those different disciplines in it from a different angle. Oh, Magnum boys, what's up, Rex? I'm just chilling, man. I'm going to see if I'm going to cut these guys a little bit of room behind me. They pulled up. They want to. I think they want to fish in my spot, my ranting area. All right, so I'm going to come back a little bit and look at some of these other questions real quick. All right, how's it going? I'm doing great. How do shoot far? Very carefully. You can shoot very far and not hit a lot of stuff, or you can shoot far with one round and hit exactly what you're aiming at. So you can either just pull the trigger a lot and eventually walk it in there and hit, or you can actually get everything dialed in perfect. There's different ways to do that. Different styles of doing it. Oh man, we got some comedians on the page here, man. Break in, absolutely. The best way to break in a rifle, in my opinion, is to shoot it using conventional ammo or whatever you need to use. That's what I would typically use. Looks like they are selecting a different spot back there, so I feel kind of guilty now. I'm just sitting. I'm not even fishing or nothing right now. But yes, break in, I think, with using regular ammo, making sure, of course, there's not any machining marks or anything like, or if you use a factory barrel, sometimes there's chatter marks. There might be debris in there. But the most organic way to break in a barrel is to shoot it. Are you ever planning on doing classes up in British Columbia? We love to host you. We have access to a range out to 1,400 meters. Actually, that's something we could potentially do. I'd have to, of course, you'd have to be my liaison up there. And if you are interested, Commonwealth countries aren't going to be a problem for that. We can do marksmanship type classes like we've been doing. We just put a little bit of a tilt on it towards that. Absolutely, we can do that. If you want to email Mrs. Rex through the Rex Defense deal, saying that you'd like to host us in British Columbia, get with her and then we'll hammer out the logistics. What's the practical long range accurate with the budget AR-556? Cheap under $100 scope. I'm thinking only like 300 or 400. Okay. So if you're looking for a budget AR-15, there's a lot of good ones that are actually pretty decent. I mean, I run Colts typically, and I know a lot of guys don't like that outfit. They're a little more pricey, but that's not a budget AR, I suppose. I'm trying to think. Aero Precision is really good, in my opinion. They seem to work very well, and they're not like super high priced. There's actually a huge diversity of different ARs nowadays. And if you look at, we have one of our compadres in the DMR project actually wrote a really good article, the judicious use or selection of fighting equipment, I believe is the article he wrote. And that's something that I might do a video on, is going over all the different features you're going to look for in an AR, because there's literally hundreds and hundreds of different outfits that snap them together and build them to different configurations. And it's really important to understand the basics of the internal ballistics in terms of the functioning of the weapon and what you're trying to accomplish. So I would just get like a over-the-counter Aero Precision is probably a good way to go. A BCM is a really nice rifle. They're a little more expensive. That's not really a budget rifle. There's certainly ones I would shy away from. In my experience, I've had a lot that did not work in my day too. I've had dozens of ARs, like probably a lot of you guys had. But I did eventually gravitate towards quality rifles, because if you shoot enough, they will break, and they always break when you don't want them to break. And for a cheap scope, for shooting 400 yards, you can do like, if you're doing 400 yards, you can do a Holosun, which is it might be like a $200 red dot sight, but they do have an ACSS reticle in there, and that'll get you out to, you don't really need a drop reticle. If you zero it properly, you can get a battle sight zero out to 300 meters, no problem with an AR rifle for shooting bad guys. So that's not a problem. But like an Aero Precision with maybe one of those Holosun sights might be a pretty good way to go. If you had a little bit more money, you could get into like a prism scope, like the 3 power compact would be probably ideal. They're a little bit hefty, but I like that. They're very, very heavy duty. Do we plan on any classes or events near Dallas? Absolutely. We just have one on the books now, guys, for later this fall when it cools down a bit. I think it's Veterans Day weekend again, if I remember correctly. And we're going to be in Dallas area for that. It's actually going to be a seminar that we're going to do at the range, so you can bring your rifle to the seminar in Texas there. In Dallas, I think is this coming Veterans Day. I believe. I think that's when it is. But it's on rexdefense.com, and you can bring your rifles to the seminar, and we're going to show you a lot of the stuff that we normally would do in the classroom on the range, because there's certain parts where we're talking about ergonomics, where it's nice to get guys behind the rifle and actually get that adjusted. And of course, we're going to follow that one up as well with the RX-1000. So we're going to do the seminar immediately followed by an RX-1000. If you're anywhere in the South Central USA, that's going to be the class for this year. I'm not sure what our plans are next year again. I'm not sure if we're going to continue with a lot of the commercial training. We might go in different directions there, but if you guys want to jump in on one of those events, definitely jump in on now. rexdefense.com will have all the details. There's like a course schedule button you can look at to find those, okay? All right, which would you recommend for a laser rangefinder? Say Kilo 2400, ABS, or the Kilo 3000 BDX binoculars? Okay, really it depends on your budget. I'll tell you what, man, and I think I even got those binoculars right here. I always keep my rifle with me. But here's the SIG BDX 3000s, okay? These are actually really effective, and they're, I don't want to be weird, look out across the lake here. They're really good quality glass too, just as a set of binoculars. And this thing will range, let me just shoot it across the deal here. Yeah, I'm ranging 1,700 meters, holding with a real wiggly hold, sloppily across the lake, and picking up. They go very far. You can watch the review I did on the BDX for a little bit more money, though. I mean, the SIG actual, the SIG 2200 and 2400 are both very good for the money. I think one of the best values is probably the Leupold RX 2800, which is, you can go really far at that as well. Again, there's a little bit of training required to properly operate a laser rangefinder. That might not sound correct. Just because you pick up a number when you're pointing it sort of at the target doesn't mean it's the right number. You have to understand how the beam is collimated, what shape it is. A lot of those beams are not just like a dot. They do have, you know, they do spread out over time, and they do have a different shape. Sometimes they're vertically oriented, kind of a rectangular beam. Sometimes they're horizontally oriented, and if you're shooting at glancing angles, you can get a lot of false readings if you don't properly operate a laser rangefinder. That's something we show you how to do at the RX-1000, and especially the ELR class, where a laser rangefinder can really, really hose you if you're not aware of those issues, because you don't want to just pop it, get a number, and go with that number. Your danger space is way, way, way too tight at extreme long range when you're shooting over a mile. Like if you get your distance wrong by 25 yards, 25 meters, it's not going to be a good deal. You could totally miss the target very easily. All right, are we going to do any classes in Pennsylvania? Yes. Again, rexdefense.com has a course schedule. Click on the course schedule button. I do believe we're doing the DMR classes out there. So if you got a carbine or even like a deer rifle or any kind of rifle that you want to learn how to run quickly for a designated marksman type application, we're going to be doing that in Pennsylvania this fall. And so you can check that out. We're doing, I think, the first 3 of the levels there with the DMR courses. So definitely check that out on rexdefense.com for a training schedule. And I'm not sure how many of those we're going to do commercially either. We might just go in different directions with that as well. And so you guys, if you want to jump in on one of them deals, there's no guarantee next year beyond a couple classes that we do have posted there. We are actually going to get together again with Eduardo Foncuberta. He's from Madrid, Spain, and he's going to come down again. He's like probably the best guy in the world with the expertise for extreme long range shooting in terms of big bores and stuff like that. He's a former world champion multiple times. You can look up his resume if you want to see that he actually knows what he's talking about. But we co-instructed the last ELR class together in Texas earlier this year, and he had so much fun, and it was such a good experience for everybody that he wants to come back again next year. So Eduardo will be co-instructing the ELR next year at Hawks Double Mountain Ranch in West Texas. So that's also up right now at Rex Defense. And to get into a class like that, we strongly recommend taking the seminar first, okay? And if you take the RX 1000, that's going to be helpful as well. There's a lot of bugs a guy can work out, and a lot of things like that you can get going. But the ELR class we do is a magnum course, and because to shoot that far, you're going to need some horsepower on the rifle. And so there's a different style of marksmanship again, and a whole different set of priorities on how you arrange your body behind the rifle, how you adjust your bipod, all the different details on follow through, and just all the procedures are selected different when you're shooting a big magnum like that, okay? Because there's a whole different set of priorities that pops up than when you're engaging targets from 0 to 1400 yards, for example, which is a whole, it's a different game. I'm not saying it is harder in a lot of ways for sure to shoot farther, but it's a different animal. It's a completely different animal, and the guy trains for that differently as well. And when you're setting up your ballistic computers, you're a lot more dependent at that point on a ballistic computer. And we show guys how to properly true those things and use them to their max effect and make sure they got everything right. We spend a lot of time on that. All right. I have a Savage Scout 110 with a 16.5-inch barrel. That too short for long range? Well, that depends on what caliber it would be in, I suppose, right? If you're in a 308, 16 inches will still kind of be viable, but it depends on how you define long range. Typically, I like to have a 20-inch barrel on a 308. 18 you can get away with. A 20-inch barrel is going to be totally fine out to 1100 yards if you get your stuff squared away. It depends on what caliber you're shooting. Some calibers need a little more barrel length in order to properly operate or to get the maximum efficiency out. What is your take on the tremor holes are universal and there's no spin drift? Your thoughts? Okay. So, guys asking a question about the tremor reticle. I think that it's a very smartly designed system. I actually know one of the engineers is on the patent for the Tremor 3, and we've talked a bunch on the phone, and we did visit about his reticle. I think that it does require some specialty training how to use that reticle. You're not just going to hand it to a guy and he's going to immediately know exactly how to get the most out of it. So in order to actually use that effectively, I'd strongly recommend getting formal training on that reticle by itself. You have to understand how the constants work, what the different dots are for, and as you adjust for these different wind speeds, it's not something that's going to just be intuitive out of the box. So it's something that you're going to have to train on. Once guys that know how to run them, love them, and guys that fully learn how to run them very well, they do a very good job at what they do. So my style of shooting is a little different than that. I like to dial stuff in if I'm at long range, so I don't really use a lot of those type systems. I will dial it all the way in for like ELR shooting, which is a lot of what I do, or at maximum if I'm shooting at like water bottles at 1,000 yards or something like that, or clays, I like to just dial it all in myself. So I have different preferences. That doesn't mean it's not good or whatever, right? Or if I'm doing like closer stuff like medium range target interdiction, like with a lot of targets, like a DMR type style shooting, then I would gravitate towards a more BDC style reticle myself. But everything's built for a certain application, right? So just because one guy might, if I give you the answer, I'm giving you the answer from my angle, imagining the way in the task that I would be doing, right? So each one of those different items and accessories and reticles is going to be built for a different application. What are your thoughts on the 300 PRC? Great cartridge. When it comes to cartridges, guys, pretty much any of those is going to be plenty good in the right hands for what its designed application is, okay? There's not going to be any magic calibers that make you shoot better. It's really going to be on us to run that and manage the entire system effectively and to collect good data so we can have good inputs. Once we get that figured out, you can have some ancient stuff. You can have a 3040 Craig and an 1898 Craig Jorgensen and just rock it out to 1,000 yards or whatever. It doesn't. The caliber is not so much the big part of long range shooting. I mean, the caliber is this much, and then this much is the person behind it managing the system effectively and getting good inputs and utilizing a good strategy to make that shot. But that being said, it seems to be a very popular caliber. We had one at the ELR class last year, and the guy behind it knew how to run it. He shot very, very well. Hey Rex, have you picked up a USO BFX 10 yet? I mentioned it a few months back on here. I have not seen that yet. I have an old ST10 from US Optics, and something that's served me very well. but I've not seen the brand new one yet. I would be very curious if anyone knows anyone from US Optics, or wants to shoot him a message, say, hey, send Rex one of them new scopes. I'd be very curious. I imagine that's a straight 10 power deal, and I would imagine that would work pretty darn good. So I would be very curious to see how that would operate. Okay. All right. Thoughts on the original IOR Recon versus the Gentoo? Oh man, I didn't think anyone would ever ask me that question. The availability of the Recon Gentoo. Well, all right, let's start off here. So there's two different optics. Okay. The original Recon is made in Instrument Optics of Romania. Very, very nicely made scope. The glass is very, very, very hard to beat. It uses shot glass out of Germany, and is constructed with the Romanian style of constructing optics, which is very, very robust, very, very good. The eye box is incredible. The IOR Recon, made by IOR, actually, is very, very nice. The Recon G2 is a Japanese model configured similarly, but totally different design, okay? And the way the Europeans have the control groups, which is the actual parts that adjust the erector, like your turrets and stuff like that, is going to be different than how the Japanese design it. The Japanese have a totally different way of executing that. And so the G2 is going to utilize a Japanese style design for the control group. That being said, the ones that I've tested seem to work pretty good. Half of them. I think that the original batch of them, there was some bugs to be worked out, and I'm just 100% like straightforward with you guys. I can't BS you, right? We have a lot of guys at the ELR classes who really love those things, and they do a good job. And they're very, very effective with them. And so I think that the availability on the Japanese model is going to be a heck of a lot better than on the other model. Okay. Yeah, we got our friend here to the left of me, right? And I think that that's a model, the Japanese model, that if you ever need, service on the optic, or if you need a replacement, or if something breaks, it's going to be a heck of a lot better. There is a downside to the stuff that comes from Romania. The actual factory is owned by, I believe, still the government of Romania, and so if they're not, maybe they have other priorities besides the American sporting market, and they might not have that customer service like you would be used to in the sporting market, where the customer is always right. So that's something to think of there as well. All right, let's go back a little bit in the commentary here. Are GRS stocks usable for sport tactics shooting, or is it rather hunting stuff? It depends on your ergonomics. Each stock is designed for different ergonomics, right? And they have pluses and advantages in terms of usability for different applications. In my opinion, stocks generally, you can take a glance at a rifle stock once you understand what you're looking at and how the internal ballistics play out in a rifle, particularly the harmonic reverberations in the rifle, right? And have a pretty darn good idea of where the weak points are going to be in terms of maximum precision applications, and where the strong points will be. Stuff with less moving parts is going to definitely be a lot better than stuff that has, like a lot of different adjustments. Now, stuff that does have the adjustments, if you have unique ergonomics and you need something that works well there, you're definitely going to want to swing that way, because there's different priorities again. We talk a lot about that at the RX seminar class, how to balance out those priorities, and then we help consult and coach guys through particular questions on exactly what are you trying to accomplish. If you're doing F-class shooting, then the priority might be on that internal ballistic, like maximizing the rigidity of the system, because you want maximum accuracy. If you're going to use the rifle for a lot of shooting, like sports shooting where you're laying down prone, then you might need the ergonomics. There's a whole bunch of different stuff to weigh out. Just because one is a little more wiggly than the other, or vice versa, doesn't mean it's not the one that you need for your application. Again, you have to always ask the question, or a series of questions rather, to see exactly what the person is looking to do with the system, and that will help a guy zero in on what equipment they will need, or how they'll have to manage it. Yep, Nico is the man for the US Optics. I should call him. I haven't talked to him for a little while. He's a cool guy. I don't know if you guys remember Nico Detour. He's got an Instagram channel, and he's a real fun guy. Real cool. He's a real laid back dude, very competent. He knows his stuff pretty well, and he's a good cat. I met a boy named Rex Torsky, and he knew you to tell you and told me to tell you hi. Okay. I think I know who that is. Any thoughts on the Hornady A-tip ammunition bullets? Have you tried them? The A-tip? I'm not familiar with the A-tip. For a long time, and I don't know if you guys can still hear a guy there, but the A-Max was a bolt that I used for a long time, but I never did use the A-tip specifically, if you're asking about that one. All right, what else do we got here? I have a Savage 110 Tactical 308 in 20-inch, and I also have a fixed 10 SWFA scope. Is that going to be okay? Absolutely, man. I am wanting to learn how to dial in firing solutions. Is this scope still okay for this? Now, yes, that's a great scope and a good rifle combination. You don't need to spend a lot of money. In fact, some of our best shooters from some of the classes are running a Savage Model 10 or 110 or a Model 12, like a just over-the-counter Savage with a SWFA straight 10 on it, and they were some of the best shooters at some of the classes. Again, it's not all on the equipment, it's on the manager of the equipment. If the scope is operating good, then it's fine. SWFA is like anything made by a human, guys. You have to verify that it's actually going to work. A lot of those places don't verify that each one going out the door is in fact working all the way. But the SWFA in general, the straight 10 power, I think they're still a good fair bet in that $299 price range. Like they're inherently pretty rugged because they are a fixed power optic. There's not a lot of stuff in the, when you're turning up your magnification that's going to throw you off. And once you introduce complexity into the optic, if you guys remember the old Sniper 101 series I did years back, we talk in detail about why simple is good for a lot of reasons. It makes them more rugged. There's less parts to break, right? Thoughts on the new MTC turrets on Schmidt & Bender PM2? Actually, pretty good. I kind of like them. I don't own one. Wait a minute. Nope, I don't have that model. I've played with them a lot, but yeah, they're good. Anything done by Schmidt's going to be executed very well. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat of knowing where you're at in your dialing. Will you ever do an update series on the Sniper 101? That's kind of the plan, man. Don't tell anybody, that's top secret, but yes, we've had guys asking for years and years and years to produce that or to make it available on video. I feel that if I'm going to sell something on DVD or in a flash drive or an upload, if I'm going to sell something like as a video series, I'm going to redo it and rehash it out. And the original series is awesome, but there is a little bit of a time component in there because there's so much new stuff available now that happened maybe partially as a result of the 101 series to pressure the market in the right direction on equipment. When I did the series originally, there wasn't a lot of options in certain categories, particularly rifle optics, especially affordable stuff. And now the market's way more diverse. So I think it would be wise. I'm going to go through the 101 series and keep it less on this particular equipment, but more on what to look for in equipment in general. And that's kind of what we do at the seminar. That's why the seminars are timeless. We're talking science and engineering. We ain't telling you exact models unless you ask. We do talk about the current recommended models, but we preach more on the science, the baseline science, so that when you walk away as the equipment evolves, you can still actually know what's going on with that. I've seen you shoot a 243 at long range. How do you compare a 25-06 for long range precision? 25-06 is a great caliber for a lot of things. Really in the 257 caliber bullets, there's not a lot of extreme high BC type stuff available in that cartridge, and in the 25-06 in particular, it's already kind of a long round. So if you did have a high BC bullet, it's going to be a little bit longer typically. You're not going to be able to fit it in a lot of magazines, or you'd have to single load them. I think 25-06 is great. But the bullet availability, particularly in that cartridge to make it fit in the magazine, that's why it's not been like a long range, extreme long range round for competitive circuits and guys that are really, really into that. But it's a great round. It's a flat shooting round, great for deer slaying. That was one of my first precision rifles, a 25-06, and I would just shoot 100 grain bullets out of there. But I wasn't going 1,500 yards with it. I was going 300, 400, 500 yards, and at those distances, it does very well. But again, it's on the manager of the system, right? So even if you got a low BC bullet and a 25-06, if you know where to dial it, all you have to do is put some extra clicks on there. So it's not all on the equipment or even the bullet selection. If you know what you're doing, you can just dial it one way or the other and get very, very precise with it. I was just given a Ruger 7mm Magnum 24-inch barrel with a 6 to 24 by 50 Vortex first focal plane. Can I use this as a beginner for long-range shooting? I would say absolutely yes. A 7mm Magnum is definitely going to get you out to a mile, no problem, once you know what you're doing. And as long as that optic is working, you simply do a tracking test, okay? And you're going to dial it up and down and see if it's tracking as needed, or if not, you might have to use the reticle for holdover, okay? But a first focal plane Vortex scope like that, I don't know exactly, that must be a PST is what you're talking about, I'm assuming. It's going to be configured appropriately for long range shooting. To get started, it'll actually show you, absolutely show you how to manage that system. If for some reason they ever want to upgrade to a different scope, then you can do that, but it'll get you started for sure. I started a long time ago on really cheap scopes. And I'd say 99, well, not 99, but like 90% of my shooting experience that I gained, where I was really honing in my marksmanship skills, was using like a $30 scope. When you are doing serious long-range shooting, then you need optics configured for that application to do that in a reliable way. If it's a life and death deal, all of a sudden, like, you got to really get fussy. But if you're learning how to do it, you can use anything configured for long-range shooting and learn how to do it. And if something breaks, then you can either send back and get a new one, or you can switch optics. So it's not a limiting deal. Rex, your 101 series definitely influenced manufacturing in the right direction. Prior to your series, everything was going to the custom turret BDC direction. Now, the custom turret and ballistic drop compensating deals are not a bad thing if you understand the limitations that you have to have calibrated for your area of operations and your load appropriately to utilize it. And then when you have things pop up like the atmospheric variations that are going to be natural as different places move in, or if you're in rugged terrain, you're going to really have to keep on top of your air density, and then you have to make adjustments for that. So that can be utilized. But yeah, I know that back when we started the series, and even before I started the series, long before I ever did anything on YouTube, before I had a computer, I was just in the field all the time, shooting all the time. And I remember calling companies like Leupold and some of these other outfits and asking for like a first focal plane scope with a mil-mil reticle, or with a mil-mil configuration, and a lot of these outfits laughed their butts off. And they said, there's nobody, who the hell would want to have that? They're crazy. Who would ever want a scope like that? And so I called all the big name outfits in the United States trying to find a scope in a first focal plane that had mil turrets, and everyone just thought I was nuts. And then after I did this 101 series, and I'm not saying it was all on me, of course, but once the public awareness got out there that, hey, this thing exists called mil-mil configuration, and that the scope reticle could match the turrets, and you could have a first focal plane. Once people realized that was an option, people were wanting it, and then there was a major market pressure, and absolutely they're available all over the place now. All different kinds of companies are doing that. So that's a kind of a cool deal that the market did finally catch up with our particular genre there. Okay, what do we got here? What do you think of the Athlon Cronus 5 by 29 by 56 compared to Night Force? The Cronus that I tested actually worked very, very well. Now, Night Force it's hard to compare stuff that's like executed very, very well. When you reach a certain level of precision, like in terms of how the optics are manufactured, they both are if they're both perfect or unmeasurable difference, it's hard to say which one is better. Of course, Night Force has a long-standing reputation for doing a very good job, particularly on their like AT-ACRs, their Beast series, even the NXS series, right? And so those have a long-standing reputation of being a good company. But the Athlon Cronus, when I checked it with the tracking precision, it was dead on balls accurate. And even the other one, the Ares ETR and the Midas TAC, those two as well, in terms of tracking precision. And I'm not talking just a box test on a piece of paper, not just half the tracking, but from the bottom end of the tracking all the way to the top end of the tracking, they were dead on balls accurate, like unmeasurable on how much error there was, because I couldn't find any error. And so, and every time we do a class, guys, I get more and more data points too on these different optics, and to see how they work. And there is variance within any model, right, of how they're going to go over time. And there's different guys that work at the factory wherever they're made, right, China and Japan, And you know, if it's a Monday scope or a Friday scope or a Wednesday scope, like you don't know. So their stuff will always change, but there are generalities and general patterns you'll see where these companies do a little bit better of a job, a little bit worse of a job. But I do know that at least when I talked to them, Athlon was actually doing 100% confirmation on their tracking. Every scope they sell on those 2 series I know was being run through a collimator, which is something that I don't know if a lot of outfits actually do that. Some of the higher end ones do, but they're available for a good price. So they're good deal. Thank you for your testimony on your life in Jesus. No problem, William. I'm not shy to talk about that stuff too. That's no problem. I don't try to flaunt it out there to scare everyone off or whatever, but yeah, I won't be shy about that. What do you think of the Covenant 7 scope for beginner LR and ELR? Covenant 7. I'm not sure if I've seen one of them yet. We got a lot of guys coming through the classes with a lot of different optics. I don't recall seeing a Covenant 7 scope. Oh yeah. All right, let's back up here and see if we got some more questions. All right. Are Cytron's S3 still relevant for long range? Well, I would think so. I mean, they're a good scope. I've had Cytron S2s. They had, I forget what the name of the tracking was, but they had like their own design that was supposed to be more reliable. I think it was the S track or the Z track. I forget what they call it now because it's such a long time ago. I haven't seen a new Cytron to know, but I know that when you're talking specifically about extreme long range shooting and long range shooting in the tactical discipline, the configurations have opened up now. So there's a lot of outfits. It's highly competitive, which is a good thing for us. That means that there's going to be a lot more guys that are in the deal trying to make us happy. And so Cytron was one of the first ones I started with, even before SWFA. I think is why I used Cytron before I went to SWFA. And of course I had my Schmidt and Bender for business, you know what I mean? But that was kind of an expensive deal. That was like a big time investment. Thread locker, yes or no? We talk about that in detail at the seminar because it depends on what you're trying to do. Thread locker, and mind you, thread locker is going to work on a ferrous material like steel, so you have to have either steel screws, you know. But if you're using aluminum on aluminum, it might not activate as properly. But there's different kinds of thread locker, and I do use thread locker, but I do it in a very specific manner, okay? Because if you lock it right away when you just mount the scope base on there, there's a lot of micro surfaces on the finish that hammer together, and it'll actually make it look very like it's coming loose. And you won't detect that with a thread locker because you'll go to tighten up the screws and they'll feel tight. And so I go through a process when I mount a scope initially to make darn sure that it's mated together properly, or I bed it. Okay, and yes, I do use thread locker, but I wouldn't just throw it on there willy-nilly. We talk a lot about this at the seminar on the microscopic variations of those different surfaces being helpful to make stuff come loose. Okay, so if you want to learn more about that deal, I mean, that's like an hour conversation actually, where we talk about the procedure for properly mounting a rifle scope, how to do it, you know, how to hammer out those things, like where to load it, where to get the surfaces mated together with the rings, the bases, etc. How to mount a scope is actually something that's one of the big reasons people are chasing zero, is they think their scope is broke, or they think the load sucks, or the barrel's warped, or maybe the forend needs to be carved out more with more free floating, or there's a lot of people, or there's a lot of reasons why people will chase their tail in chasing zero. And one of the reasons is actually all those things hammering together with recoil and finding their happy spot. Eventually you have to shoot the rifle, and there's different ways to artificially induce those recoil things, or accelerate them so that you can get your scope settled in and then Loctited appropriately. All right. Is the Tremor 3 reticle good for your combat command fire course? Of course. I mean, most of your professional military guys now have gravitated towards that reticle. They are using the Tremor 3. So I would say if you know how to use it, it'll be helpful. Just having one ain't going to help you, right? You can just have one and not know what all them dots are for, right? So you have to be, I would recommend being trained on it. And at the combat command fire course, it's actually not really a marksmanship course so much. It's more of a field craft course. We take you through how to be sneaky, how to sneak up on a really, really alert, like
target that knows what it's doing, us. And then you do a fire mission, and we walk you through how to do spot reports, how to move, how to conceal your position, stuff like that. So the combat command fire course actually is something that, if you got a seminar again under your belt, and we know who you are, that's something we don't just like to turn people willy-nilly loose in the field if we don't know them first with rifles to shoot at targets within kind of our vicinity, because oh no, there's a lot of different ways a guy can train that way, but yeah, you can use a deer rifle for the combat command fire course with a Simmons Pro Hunter on it, because the ranges you'll find when you get there where you are guaranteed going to make a hit on 100% of the time on the target, which is essential in those applications. Okay, you're going to actually be a lot closer than you might think you're going to be. You're not going to be 1,500 yards away, unless you can hit 100% of the time. And when you're talking about animate targets move around, so all of a sudden you don't have that guarantee. We talk about that at the Combat Command Fire course, but I mean, we recommend a rifle setup for precision, military use, or like a real rugged precision shooting deal with that kind of angle on it. Something that's heavy duty that's not going to break would be good, because you're going to be dragging it around a little bit. And you can watch the video we did with the Combat Command Fire course and see kind of what that looked like. But that is, I think, where the rubber meets the road the most, and it's the most fun one to instruct. And I mean, you'll be tired when you're done with it, but it is like a lot of fun. And you'll have a lot of battle stories, battle training stories to take home with you when you're done with that deal. But you definitely need to train for that kind of stuff in a friendly environment ahead of time before you ever want to go through the other deal, because it's a lot harder to learn how to do it without getting killed when it's a real deal, right? So going through that, if you never had the opportunity to take training like that, that's worth its weight in gold if you ever plan on using it for tactical applications. Oh yeah, thanks for your 101 videos. Bought my rifle a month ago and went out to 1,000 yards successfully last weekend. Awesome. That's a good deal, man. What are your thoughts on the Primary Arms Platinum Hera reticle? The Hera is actually, it's a minute of angle reticle that's set up. It's like a grid pattern, but it has little dots. And that's a nice reticle for if you are a minute of angle guy. I got a Hera laying somewhere in here, but it's not the Platinum. It's the 3-18. Let's see if I got, maybe it's laying on the seat here. I was like, what does Rex drive around with? Here we go, right here. This is their 3-18, okay? And this is not the Platinum series. This is their, I forget what they call them. I think they have like a Platinum, a Gold, a Silver, etc. This is their 3-18 model with a Hera reticle. And we got 50 minutes of angle of adjustment going down. And then we have 15 minutes left and right once you get down to the 15-minute mark. And it's configured very smart. It does have the BDC deal in the side of it. So actually they do work pretty good. So that's not the Platinum one, but it is the other one. Rex, do you know any long-range shooters that had corrective eye surgery? It sucks having eyeglasses, but it would probably suck worse being blind. Actually, I have had corrected eye surgery. I used to have good vision, and then it wasn't so good for a while, and so that I got laser beamed, and I got back down to 15, 20 or whatever, like perfect vision again. And yeah, I mean, it works fine. What doesn't work very fine, and those of you that shoot with contact lenses might know this, I did have contact lenses for a little while. I was the glasses before that. But with contact lenses, when you shoot a Magnum or you're sitting next to someone who's shooting a Magnum, the overpressure, if they're the flexible ones, will make them poof, suck up to your eyeball, and then they'll pop back out. So for a second right after you send the shot, your eyes will go blurry, and then you'll feel them kind of point, pop back out on you. So if you're shooting a rifle, I would either, now the nice thing about a rifle scope is you can focus that for your eyeball. Usually, if I've been able to have enough focus to where you don't need your corrective glasses. Then I just shoot with, I take my glasses off and I just look through the scope and I have it set up for that. Or you can shoot with glasses. Contact lenses are a little bit problematic, but if you have corrective eye surgery, I'm not a doctor. There's a lot of other eye surgeries besides LASIK, and you have to ask your doctor, of course, because if you had some kind of eye disease or something, your retina could become detached. You could have neurological issues. Do not trust me. Ask your eye doctor. That's the better answer, okay? What? Who are these people? Is it true that Lou got drunk and kissed Justin in your Vegas class? I don't know who that is. It's funny. Lou actually doesn't really drink all that much. I think I've seen him drink like once in my life, and it was like a glass of wine. I don't think I've ever seen Lou drink. He doesn't imbibe. So, and I'm pretty sure he didn't kiss Justin. I would have remembered something like that. You guys are so funny. That's the word on the street. Okay, we got some guys here. Yep. It's true on the internet, right? Hey, they got these deep fake deals now, I heard, where they can like take your voice and your picture, and they can pretty much make you do anything like in the world. You could be like in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and not even know it. They have those apps. One of my buddies came over. They just take a video of you, and in real time it adjusts it so that your buddy can talk, and then it's your face and voice coming out. It's crazy, the technology that's out there. So maybe that did happen with Lou and Lou. I don't remember. I'm not going to let you guys pull me down this rabbit trail. What am I doing? So it's the coffee making me imprudent. I have a Remington 700 Police 308 24-inch 1 in 12 twist. What bullet weight do you recommend for long-range shooting up to 1,000? I use the Leupold Mark IV 3.5 to 10 by 40. Okay, so with the 1 in 12 twist on a Remington, I would say, I mean, normally I would say I like to use 175s, and you can use 175s with the 1 in 12 twist if you have proper chamber to bore alignment. Like if it's like a Tikka, you'd probably get away with that just fine. Or if you have a rifle that is made by a custom builder that knows how to really get a straight chamber using the proper methodology. But if you're just running a factory rifle, like an over-the-counter Remington, typically those reamers are going to pull off, and you're going to have chamber to bore misalignment, which will induce bad problems, which with a 1 in 12 twist, if you're shooting 175s, you're not going to have that kind of even gyroscopic stability, and your bullet could go, it'd be out of gas once you hit that transonic barrier out there around 1,000-ish with that, okay? So I would use 168s probably if I had a 1 in 12 twist, but the proof is in the pudding, man. If you already have the rifle, go ahead and buy yourself a box of 175s and see how they fly. That's the only way to know. I've had rifles with really slow twist rates that should not have worked at all with the bullets I was shooting in them. And they shot amazingly well because they had good chamber to bore alignment on that particular rifle for whatever reason. Again, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, or if you like that kind of subject material matter, you better come to the RX seminar. Our next one is in Idaho, okay? In Boise, Idaho, on, again, for the guys that just tuned in, that's going to be July 27th and 28th, guys. That's like less than a month away. Boise, Idaho. If you're anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, this might be your one chance to see the course, see what's going on. We'll give you the full master's degree download of information when it comes to internal ballistics, equipment selection, how to manage your system, how to get your inputs, how to log velocities, how to properly use your computers, how to not use your computers, which ones work better for different applications. We talk about everything. We're going to get you totally to a point of viability. Are we doing classes in North Dakota? In the summertime we do, because it's cool up in North Dakota and it's not so stupid hot. And so we just finished up a couple of them up here. Maybe next year we'll do another one. They're not on the books yet, like I said. If you guys want to get in on the training, you better jump on that quick, because I'm not sure what direction Rex Defense is going next year. It's still up in the air if we're going to do commercial classes publicly available or not. If other things pop up, then we're going to probably be busy with that. So, okay, 300 Winchester Magnum gold medal match. Yep. Good ammo. Now, a lot of times your gold medal match, the way you want to rate your ammo is you're going to want to, for long range shooting, it's more important to get a consistent velocity. So you're going to look at your standard deviation on your muzzle velocity, and so you're going to get a chronograph and you're going to see how much velocity spread you have. That's going to translate, if you have a lot of velocity spread, like typically gold medal match in a 308 can be like 17 to 22 feet per second standard deviation, which is a lot of deviation. And you'll see that vertical stringing at distance, because you got some that are slow, some that are fast, some that are medium, and you'll have a large group vertically at distance. Even though at 100 yards it'll put them all in the same hole, the speeds are different. At long range it'll start to pop up and bite you in the butt. So it's more important to have consistent velocities than it is to have a real small group. If you got a quarter minute of angle, 3/4 minute of angle, or even full minute of angle, which is not a group that would make me happy and feel special, if it's got really good velocity, consistency, that's the one I'm going to pick every time over one that has a real small group and has crappy, standard deviations. What chrono do I recommend? For field applications and for reasons of ease of use and for reasons of getting the proper methods and materials and consistent readings with your equipment, I like to recommend guys to get a Magneto speed. Now, if you look at it from an engineer's perspective, they're not as precise as some things like the lab radar. They're a heck of a lot faster and easier to set up correctly than is a lab radar. Lab radar requires a bit of understanding how to do that properly. You got to read the instructions, and to set it up consistently is a little bit of a process. And a lot of guys will struggle with that in the field, and it will cause you not to get as much data points. Whatever chronograph you are using, you don't want to jump around between different tools. You want to use that same device all the time, okay? So I would recommend using a Magneto speed because it's very small. You throw it on your muzzle, and then you can get you want to log your velocities at all different temperature regimes, okay? So that you know how fast your bullets are going, like when it's 100 degrees out versus 60 degrees versus 0 degrees versus minus 50 or whatever. So in order to do that, you're going to need a chronograph that's easy to throw on quick that will be set up the same every time. The other ones, if you have them like, not pointed straight in line with the board, they'll give you faulty numbers and all kinds of crazy stuff. And if you don't got it set up off to the side of the barrel in the same exact spit, there's a lot of them that work really good, but they're a little bit more fussy to set up. Silencers for long range or break comp flash. So I like guys that run suppressors at the courses. And I run suppressors whenever I can, silencers, okay? You want to run a decent silencer that's designed for precision shooting. I've run stuff that's not designed for precision shooting, and it still does fine. Like I run an AAC SDN 762, SDN 6, like it's a fast attach that's real loose on the end of the barrel, and it kind of ratchets on there, and it's been cooked. It's been barbecued. The paint is burned off of it. And I mean, I put like a huge amount of rounds through an FAL on it. That thing has been barbecued, and it still shoots totally fine on my 308 bolt rifles. So I can still shoot 1,000 yards and still hit steel. Is it as precise as a direct thread attached steel on a silencer designed for precision shooting? No, it's not as good, but it'll be fine. So get yourself a silencer. I think is the best way to go. It'll actually reduce that recoil too. But over pressure fatigue is actually a thing that can be a big problem. All right. There's a bill to ban silencers with a mandatory buyback. Yeah, well, they can write whatever they want on a piece of paper. That's good for them. And they hope they feel special when they do it too. That's my answer. Do you like 168 or 175 grain for 308 long range shooting? I like 175s. I think those are about ideal for a 308 for long range shooting. The 168s are going to be a little flatter shooting at closer distances, but once you get out to 1,000, a 175 will actually do fine at 1,000 or even 11 or 1,200 yards. And you can sometimes get beyond that if you've got, like I said, good stability on that projectile to get through the transonic. But typically 175s are my choice, and most militaries have agreed with that as well. That's actually, I mean, they do a lot of research when they select what bullets they're using, but they're going to use the M118, which is very similar to a 175 grain bow tail Matchking. It's pretty much the same exact bullet, but those are going to work very good. 500. Okay, some of these questions I would love to answer, but I don't know what you're saying. It's like cryptic. I have to get out my decoder ring. Okay. Body level 4 armor penetration distances of super magnums like 375 Shitak. So like there are hard target interdiction rifles and calibers designed for HTI that will pretty much go through whatever, like a 50. I mean, even if you can stop, there is body armor that you can wear that is 50 caliber proof. But if you got 12,000 or 13,000 foot-pounds of energy slamming you in the chest, I would not want to survive that, because your arms and legs are just going to fall down. Your torso will fly backwards, and your head will fall down too. And it's going to be like Looney Tunes with Wile E. Coyote type situation. So I don't know if I'd want a body armor that would protect me from something like a 50 or a 20 millimeter, because it would break your neck, I would imagine, getting hit with one. All right, that's pretty violent. Well, all right. Rex, my 3-year-old daughter, Candice, and I say hi. Why, hello. Good to see you too. I got a SWFA 10x42 on my Savage. Works great. Oh, yeah. I got like 3 or 4 of them things, and they all have served me pretty good. We've seen them come apart, but anything made by a human can eventually come apart or break. All right. What else do we got? Good factory bullets for 7mm to start. It depends on the twist rate of your rifle. I like to go with the high BC bullet. If you're going to be hunting, then you're going to need a long-range hunting bullet. If you're going to be target shooting, then there's a lot of stuff available. Hornady, in general, I think does a great job now on the extreme long-range shooting stuff. Burgers, of course, are very good. I think Burgers and Hornadies are probably some of your best. Sierras work great for a little bit cheaper. And the nice thing about 7mm is most of those, even their cheap bullets, even your hunting bullets, are going to have a very decent ballistic coefficient just because of the proportionality, you know, from you got a smaller caliber with the longer profile bullets. They're all going to do pretty darn good, so it gives you a lot more wiggle room there. Okay. Trying to help guys asking questions, Rex, yeah. Is your RX seminar a viable course for someone that has never touched a bolt action rifle? Absolutely. So the seminar is, I ain't going to say who comes to them, but we got some of the top guys that come to them in the world for different applications. A lot of the top guys in different industries will come to it because we talk in very, very, very good detail a lot of these topics that nobody else really teaches when you talk about the mechanics and the priorities and the whole game. However, at the same time, we will be speaking on 2 levels at the same time, okay? We will get into the full engineering depth of every topic that we cover, but I also always reiterate every major point with what they call the colloquial English, which is the normal cowboy language. I'll say a bunch of fancy stuff so that the guys that are like top industry guys or whatever will really get a lot out of it. So we're exceeding the master's degree and PhD level stuff there, but then at the same time I'll come around to that same point and I'll translate it and reiterate it in very clear English as well, okay? I think that that's the best teaching style you can do because then you can teach both people at the same time. We have people that are brand new shooters that come to it and they learn a huge amount of information. You're going to want to make sure you have a cup of coffee when you come as a brand new shooter, and different people at different levels will pick up different points, okay? Some of it might be an introduction to certain concepts that you've never heard before, don't know exist. We cover those, but we're going to go into them in great depth as well. If you do want stuff to look at before you come to the RX seminar, you can watch my Sniper 101 series, which I think is like 80 or 90 or 100 hours of instruction that goes through a lot of it, and that'll give you a real good handle on the little parts of the machine that later when we get to the RX seminar we put those parts together and show you how to properly time the engine, if that makes sense. It's like if you can study each part individually before you come, and then when you come there you can see how, okay, you know, mechanical bore erosion processes is an important topic to know about because this is how I'm going to put it together in the rest of the machine or in the rest of the system, if that makes sense. Okay, I'll take 3 more questions and then I'm going to go and find Mrs. Rex, who is walking around here someplace, going for a little walk around the lake. Who makes the best 175 grain OTM 308? Ooh, man, it depends on. I use Sierra Matchkings. Okay, now that might or might not fit your exact criteria there, but it depends on what you're doing with it. For me, I just do a lot of I envision either using it for tactical applications or target shooting. Okay, now if I'm hunting, I might do something a little bit different. But I use the Sierra Matchking because it's like the universal language of bullets in the 308. And if you know how to run ammo that's configured very similar to M118 sniper ammo, you're going to be speaking the same language as pretty much everyone else on Earth when it comes to how those things perform. And when you learn the wind or the muzzle velocity variation in those subconscious levels, when you start to get that intuition from the experience you're gaining, you're not gaining it in some weird platform that no one's heard of. You're gaining it in something that'll be around for a long time and is still the world standard for ammunition, if that makes sense. That's just my personal deal. What would my Seiko 338 long range be? Okay, so the Sako TRG 42s, every one that I've ever seen has incredible performance. I think one of the reasons is they're made in Europe. They're made to CIP standards instead of SAMI specs, and most of those are machine, cut chambers. They're not cut with a reamer. They have a different manufacturing process. So your chamber to bore alignment is a lot better on a lot of those like tier 1 European sniper rifles. They're cut very straight, so you can have very, very good bullet stability with minimal, like yaw problems and things like that you're going to see on other rifles. And so even with bullets that don't have the proper twist rates, for that twist, handle and perform with dynamic stability properties that are incredibly well out to 3,000 yards. In a 338, I mean, I'd say a mile is pretty solid. 2,000 yards, usually not a problem. 2,500 yards, you have to really start having your stuff squared away, because that bullet's going to go transonic usually a little bit beyond a mile, which means that after that point, it may or may not still be stable dynamically. But if it is still stable dynamically, like an Asako, which I've never seen one that didn't shoot very well, you can go as far as you can see. And with the proper optical equipment, obviously, you're going to run out of elevation in your scope. You're going to have to get yourself a TACCOM HQ Charlie Tarak unit or something like that to get additional holdover. So they'll shoot farther than you're ever going to need to shoot, to answer that briefly. All right, one more question, guys. What about chamber to bore alignment for FN SPR-A1? As for you, prior to the 1 in 12 question. Oh man, I can't give you a definite answer on that. In all honesty, guys, the proof is always in the pudding again. A lot of these that are sitting on the fence, or the ones that, like, I can't even speak for any company in general and say that these are always going to achieve dynamic stability. It's such magical conditions needed to achieve a good sound dynamic stability through the transonic barrier, that everything has to come together properly, including your reloading technique. And so it's not all contingent just on what is stamped on the rifle or who made it. The proof is always in, take it out and test it. And if your system as a whole, okay, and that has to do with like how you've managed it, like where the erosion is taking place. Do you have asymmetry at the crown because of the way you travel with your rifle? Have you achieved all these different like forms of equilibrium in terms of like your bore, coppering equilibrium, and your recoil equilibrium in terms of the mating of the parts with recoil? How is it bedded? Like, how are you driving the rifle? All that stuff is going to have and your ammunition, is your bullet seated straight in there? Do you index the cartridges? Do you turn them as you're seating the bullet? What kind of reloading equipment are you using? There's just too many things to give you a yes or no answer on that. In all reality, you have to take it out and shoot it. And if you're shooting it and at well beyond the maximum supersonic range, and is still grouping them in there at the same proportions it was at closer range, then you have good dynamic stability. And so the proof is in the pudding, guys. All right, it's been awesome visiting. I'm going to cut her off. We're at 62 minutes, and I don't want my phone to explode, and we're almost out of battery. But it's nice to talk to you guys. And again, if you want to come and meet us in the Northwest United States ever, I would say that the Boise, Idaho seminar coming up July 27th and 28th. You can find that at rexdefense.com. We'd love to see you guys. It might be the only time we're in that part of the country doing commercial training. So if you want to meet us there, that'd be awesome. Also, we're coming to Colorado and Texas. Check out our training schedule, guys. We're all over the country all the time. And if we're in your area and you want to hit us up, this year would be a good time to do it. And we'd love to meet you guys. All right, we'll catch you in